Alright, welcome back to episode 24. It's just gonna unfortunately be me and Skull today. We are missing a couple of people. That kind of stuff happens, life and whatnot.
Mm,
So today we're gonna have a fun little episode for me and Skull where we're just gonna talk about character arcs and writing them. Ain't that right, Skull?
yeah.
And I know we went over this briefly before with character arcs, but there are primarily four types of character arcs. Two of them are a little more common, I guess is a better way to say it, where you have the positive and negative, or I guess what most people come to know as is like redemption arcs and damnation arcs. I guess is a good way to categorize them as well, the positive and then the negative. You've also got two other ones, which are transformational arcs, where you have a character who starts a journey wanting a specific thing, but through their journey they realize what they actually need versus what they want, and they become a different person for it. And flat ones are ones where the characters don't necessarily change too much through it. They might change a little bit, but they still stay the same. It's like basically where you'd find a lot of your static characters. And it's also what you might not see a lot of, as well as the flat characters, the flat character arcs too.
In that case, I have three I can talk about.
Ah, good to know. So we'll start with positive, and then we'll move on to negative. Just get the two big ones out of the way. And I will say this, go for you and I. We can talk about obviously, mainstream characters that we've grown to love, or we can also talk about ones that we have also created.
Alright.
So going first with positive, is there any character arcs you want to mention?
I do have one, yeah.
All right, what is it?
Alright, well, when I think of like a positive or redemption arc, the character that comes to my mind right away is Macaque from Lego Monkey Kid. He starts out as what was supposed to be like a one-off villain in the first season. He plays a much larger role in the second and third, but by the end, he does sort of end up being allied with the main characters.
Okay.
I wouldn't necessarily say he's like 100% good or whatever, but he's definitely gained
Oh my gosh.
a lot of
Is
trust.
that all it
What?
takes for you? Is it's
What?
gay?
What? No. No, not gay. Not gay. I said gained.
Okay, I
Um,
was about to say.
he's like
It
he's
sounded
like an
like gay.
anti-hero. No, no. Macaque
Okay.
is like an anti-hero. It's like he's technically evil, but
But
he also sided with he's technically evil, but he also sided with the heroes to, stop greater evil. He is also kind of befriended. I want to say he's kind of he's definitely on good terms with the main characters by the end of the third season, though.
and is this a series that's still going on?
As far as I know, there is supposed to be a fourth season in the works, but I don't know if they're going to do much more with Macaque as a character because apparently his voice actor passed recently.
Oh.
Yeah, so not sure yet
I
what's
guess
going to
time
be
will
done
tell,
there.
right?
Yeah.
Well, I managed to find a few positive character arcs, not necessarily redemption, but like just positive in general. The first one, which should probably come to no surprise to anyone who knows me at least, is Lightning from the Final Fantasy 13 series.
Mm.
And this one I actually do love. So I played probably about half of the first game. I usually stop about halfway through, and I finished the second and the third game. The third game being my favorite for obvious reasons. But Lightning starts off as this character who's very closed off, guarded, does not let anyone else in, and she is very much a I will do it myself kind of person and does not want any other one to help her. But then, like, I know throughout the first game, she has to learn to accept the help of her comrades uh, as you go on, and especially as she begins to learn the truth about her world and all its, fun stuff and whatnot. I don't want to really spoil much or anything else because, like, I don't fully understand it half the time. And it comes to a point where, like, in the beginning of 13 too, the first thing she does is ask Noel to bring Sarah to her. That she's gonna need Sarah's help. And essentially, Sarah does help. And then in the last one, it's just a matter of her reaccepting her whole self, including her weaknesses, which she thought was cut out of her by someone else until she learned it was her who did it all along. So she has to have a moment of vulnerability to get that back. And in the end, she's just at peace with herself. And it's a lot better for
Mm-hmm.
it. Like it's I love it. It's something that spans obviously the whole 3 games, and even if it was just like the first game itself, I'd still say it was a positive arc because she did learn to open up. She learned to, I wouldn't say rely on others, but be able to accept help from others. Would probably be the better way to say it, and not be so angry all the time. She's still angry, but not all the time. But it's something I do appreciate from her. Mostly because like it's like a, what is it? Kind of like the older sister having to grow up and be strong all the time, kind of thing for Lightning. And it's just
Mm-hmm.
learning to grow kind of out of that and just opening up. So yeah, I really did enjoy that. Another
Mm-hmm.
one. Oh, so this is gonna be an interesting one because I have mixed feelings on this and how it was handled, and I'm pretty sure you might have some opinions on this, Skull. But I feel like it needs to be
Oh.
addressed. And that's the diamonds from Steven Universe.
Hmm.
Because technically they were redeemed. They had a technical positive arc, but I don't know. It's kind of a mixed bag. I kind of feel like blue and yellow should have been the only ones to get um what was it? Redemptions, whereas white should have gotten a damnation, a negative arc. What do you think, Skull?
Honestly, I can kind of see it.
No more
I can
thoughts?
kind of see it. I don't have a lot of context. I definitely um I saw a little bit of like the diamonds before their redemption or whatever, and I watched a bit of Future. And I don't know, like when they were shown in, was it Future that they were shown in?
They were shown a little bit in future. I think it was um yeah, because there was a episode where Steven did go to Homeworld to see how things were changing and whatnot, and I know that they appeared in the beginning and the end of the Steven Universe movie.
It was either it was either the movie or in Future. I can't remember which, but like I don't know, there was something like with White trying to use her power for good or whatever, but it was still kind of like unsettling and just didn't feel right. Like,
Was it? I
eh.
think I know which one you're talking about, where she can allow other gems to take control of her, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I remember that because like she first shows it off with Spinel, like kind of channeling and letting Spinel take control, essentially. But then Steven does, and he almost shatters her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, there's something really off-putting about that for me.
where someone just like basically possesses you and you have no control over it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's well. I mean, to be fair, that's why I say like she probably should have gotten the damnation arc because like that's basically what she did for the longest time, and that's what she did in like the finale of the actual show as well. Is that she literally took control of the other diamonds and the crystal gems and made them her basically.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, it's I still stand by that. I think White should have gotten the damnation arc. She should have been the ultimate villain. She was basically built up
Mhm.
to be the ultimate villain.
Yeah.
And like Blue, I can understand because of how much she loved Pink, but of course was still ignorant to her pain. So there's still some growth there. And Yellow just I don't know, like Yellow's kind of that mixed bag. Like I feel like she deserved it. On the other hand, I also feel like she might have deserved a damnation arc.
Hmm.
I don't know. Yellow's that kind of weird mixed bag. Like I really like her as a bitch. That's when she shined for me.
Hmm.
But this one, I know you've been exposed to as a result because of well, internet and whatnot. And that is more of Pink Diamond, Rose Quartz.
Yeah.
So I would peg her more as a positive transformation, like a positive arc.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm glad I'm not the only one here, at least, that believes that. I know some people might see it as the reverse, like going from Rose Quartz to Pink Diamond as like a damnation arc because of how the show handled it.
Yeah. I mean, with like some of what happened, it definitely wasn't the greatest, but like as her time as Rose Quartz, she did genuinely come to see like what the Earth had in store, and she didn't want to destroy it just for the sake of creating a colony.
Right, and she also did realize that as Pink Diamond, she was still just as powerless, even if she was just a common quartz. So she had to make them see reason some way, somehow. And if they weren't see reason through Pink Diamond, she'd make them see reason through Rose Quartz.
Yeah.
It's those kind of things, like, it ultimately falls down to those kind of things where it's the difficult decisions that someone has to make. Because you could tell
Yeah.
in the end, she didn't necessarily wanted to fight. She said herself, she just wanted to scare them off. And of course, in the end, like, she still got damned for it, but it's freedom is not free. That's all I gotta say. Freedom always
Hmm.
comes at a price. And Pink Diamond Rose Quartz definitely paid it. But in the
Mm.
end, they did get the freedom, and admittedly, without her actions, the show wouldn't have taken place.
Yeah.
It's just that kind of thing, like, it's not the best thing that she did, and that she was still learning as she went. That's also what makes it so great, is this being that is supposed to stay the same, that is not meant to grow and change, is arguably the most human out of all of them because of how much she changes and grows throughout the series.
Yeah.
And I will die on that hill. I suppose what? Well, technically more than one, but as a whole for this movie, because I kind of noticed this when I so just a quick little aside for this skull. When I was picking characters to talk about for this, I was actually going through my Pinterest boards, and of the characters I actually knew decently well, and I came to kind of realize that now, this could be a hot take or whatever the case may be, but it feels like a lot of the Disney princesses, in terms of arcs, are flat. It could just be me, but technically, the definition of a flat character is someone who has not changed much from their original starting point. They may have changed a little bit, but nothing drastically. So that's why for this, I put Elsa and Anna on here because they very much had a positive growth throughout both their movies. Admittedly, they backslided a little bit when it came to the second movie at the start of it, but then you still see them grow and come to terms with their place in life. And what do you think, Skull?
Well,
Were you paying attention?
I was. I just. What do you mean? What do I think?
Ah, what are your thoughts? Come on, what else could I possibly mean?
Oh.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
Um. With with this, I honestly don't really have a lot to say. I haven't seen the second Frozen movie.
You're not really missing out on much. Just, there are parts of it that are good, but then it's undermined by a lot of cringe.
Uh,
Yeah,
let's see.
I'd say the only parts I really genuinely like from the second movie was with Elsa and Anna. But the
Hmm.
problem is Olaf and Kristoff are there, and they're the cringe. So
Uh,
yeah, it's not good. But then, like,
I
what are your thoughts on what I
see.
had said regarding the rest of the Disney princesses being more flat, static?
Yeah.
I do say most because there are some that obviously do have something of an arc. But then there's a lot of them that really don't, and we'll get into that a little bit later, and I can justify my reasonings.
Yeah.
Now, moving into probably the next one is negative arcs, or probably more correctly known as damnation arcs. You got anything, Skull?
Well, for negative arcs,
Yes.
not really.
Nothing at all.
Mm.
Alright. Well, I have two. Um. Now, you ready for this one, Skull? This is gonna be a fun one.
Boy.
So, as much as I hate the decision, as much as I disagree that this character got what they did, I will say I do enjoy Chloe's damnation arc from Miraculous and do believe it was actually pretty good. Now, I know a lot of people would have wanted her redemption, and we've gotten tastes of what her trauma was like, and it's what was it? There is a YouTuber, Sarcastic Chorus, where he did point out that whenever we are shown trauma in a character, it almost automatically flips a switch saying redemption a lot of the time. And I don't disagree. I really don't. Which does make it a little bit harder seeing Chloe's arc. Because you want to root for her, you see her change, you see her starting to get better, until it is not her fault that things go wrong. Yes, she messed up initially, but then Ladybug kept messing up in turn, giving her hope. Not like clearly she said you can't have the miraculous anymore, but she had to be really firm with that. And Chloe would not listen. And the problem being is that when Chloe sees other people who had revealed themselves, like Kagami being Ryuko, that's obviously gonna spark some anger. It's like, you won't let me be this, but you'll let other people be that. So it only makes sense that she would then turn to the villains who would give her what she wants. because Ladybug is being a fucking hypocrite. Yes, it sucks, but I think it was handled pretty well.
Mhm.
And the other one is one of my own characters I wanted to like just talk about for a moment because it's kind of interesting.
Cool.
She is a static character by all means, but she gets her own damnation arc essentially. Well, what would be seen as a damnation arc for what she does essentially. It's kind of like I don't know. It's kind of hard to really describe like the overall, but essentially it is Shaquilla, and again, she is very a radical individual. She will go through and do certain things that aren't very, heroic and things like that. Things that she believes are right to do, even if they don't align with the moral. She very much is an anti hero. And because of her beliefs, her ideals, and things like that, she will trigger probably like very dangerous events that will essentially damn her in the eyes of so many. But of course, then like
Hmm.
to other people, like people who she aligns with, at least like in terms of ideas and things like that, she will be seen more as like a true hero because she took a stand, she took a step, she did something not many would do because of the consequences. It's essentially the rose quartz, pink diamond kind of situation where she will be a hero to the few, but a criminal to the many because of what she does.
Hmm.
Which makes it a very kind of interesting dynamic. Like, is it a damnation or is it just a flat character arc? Depends on who's reading it and who sees it. But essentially, she will be like the straw that breaks the camel's back. She will be the one to trigger a string of events.
Hmm.
That's it's also why I like writing her in particular because it just her ideals and how she's very much trying to fight for the many, for those that are ostracized, those who are oppressed. Very much a freedom fighter in her eyes. Which again, freedom is never free, and is also a very noble but dangerous idea.
Hmm.
Coming from an American, right? Well, you heard it here. But that's again, that's what makes it fun because in her mindset, she sees people she believes should be themselves. They should be allowed to live their lives the way they are. But because of how they were born, they're not allowed to. They have to adhere to a certain standard. And that standard is only to appease the people of a higher power. So that's why it's kind of like those. It basically is a damnation arc for a static character, which is what makes it fun. This is a character who will not change or waver in their beliefs, but will have one of the most damning of arcs just for like what she believes in, and her having the probably like bravery and also foolishness to go forward with it. It's a fine line. Wait, what's the saying? One part brave, three parts fool, kind of
Something
thing.
like that.
Yeah, something like that. But I don't really have very many other damnation arcs because we do have this thing where we do like the idea of redemption, but because we always want to see the best in others, but it's not always possible. Unfortunately, yeah.
Hmm.
So I don't really have very many damnation arcs. Unfortunately, that's like the only two I really have. I'm trying to think through other stuff. The only other thing I could possibly bring up is in my AU with Miraculous AU with how I'm writing. Gabriel Gress or Hawkmoth, or as I'm calling him, Papillon, how he goes from a relative guy who is indeed a control freak, controlling every aspect of his son's life, till a certain event happens, and he begins to slip. And he falls deeper into his madness and to kind of like his own delirium, to the point where it does warp him into a true monster. One that has absolutely no remorse for anyone, no sympathy, no nothing, only cares for himself and his end goals. And damn the consequences of what it takes to get there. Essentially becoming the very monster that he creates. What are your thoughts, Skull?
Whoa.
Any other comments, questions, concerns?
Whoa.
to to which one? To which one?
This is the one you were just talking about. Just whoa.
What, what's so whoa about it? It's just your typical average bad guy.
But whoa.
Wait, the fact that he's just willing to sacrifice everything just to get what he wants.
Uh-huh.
I mean, there are people like that in this world, except for just add in a touch of supernatural to it, and you really are screwed. It's gonna be fun leading up to that moment, though. It's a pain in the ass going from each character that I have, but I'll have to work with. I could have just stuck to like the two main characters, but what's the fun in that?
Yeah.
That's just me. That's just me. So,
Definitely more fun expanding on all the characters.
well, it definitely is, especially when you have a wide array of arcs as well. I know we just finished up with the positive arcs, but there is so many of them where you have oh, let me okay, so this is a big one. I'm going to give a big warning right here right now of suicidal themes, but I'm just going to dive into that. You have been warned. But one of the characters I rewrote English rewritten was Alex, and this is where I say a lot of, but not a lot of inspiration, but she ended up being a lot like a certain person I know, without meaning to. Um, it was kind of actually pointed out to me a little bit later, but she does have a positive arc, but where she comes from is a very dark place. She's very much that very angry, kind of rebellious teenager, the kind that didn't necessarily have a hard life, but because of the people around her and how they affected her, was damning to her. And the big start, which may also be another triggering thing, so fair warning, is canonically Alex is a romantic. And as someone who is Arrow Ace, it's difficult trying to process that sometimes and accepting it on top of that, as well as the people around you not accepting it either. And I played that into her arc, where she discovered fairly early on, probably about middle school, that she does not like romance, that she is not fully capable of feeling, not really feeling, like experiencing romantic attraction. And romantic interactions make her physically ill, which is romance repulsed. And this playing into how it affects her relationship with her family, how her mother wants her to follow in her older brother's footsteps and go along the path that he's stepped down, because it led to his happiness, so it must lead to her happiness too. But when that little thing comes up, it just throws a big wrench in, because one of the big things that her brother achieved was a happy spouse, like a happy family essentially. But Alex will never really want that. She'll want companionship in a sense, but she won't want a family like that. Not in the same way. And it just causes a big spiral in her where she just goes down and down, and every single bad decision just leads her further and further from everything to the point where it
Hmm.
is just anger and numbness. And this is where I say the suicidal themes come in, because there's a point where Alex subconsciously gives up. And at that point, every bad decision she makes is to bring her closer to the grave. Because in her mindset, and keep this in mind, this is still suicidal, that if someone else does it, but it's your intent to end your life, it's still suicide. And that is the mindset that she is technically in at the start, is that if it's someone else who does it, then it's nothing to really worry about. So let me go off and do these things. Let me get into fights. Let me do this and that. Every single bad decision, she hopefully brings her closer to death. And even then, when she is faced with death, she can't bring herself to fully let go either.
Hmm.
Up until a point where she is basically at death's door. It's just one thought away from tipping over the edge. And it's where it's kind of laid out in full of how she's been feeling, how she's always been teetering back and forth between this line, between life and death. Do I do it or do I not? Until she finally stops at the end of her line and allows herself to fall, but is caught before she can actually die. And it's at that moment where
Hmm.
she does open up to someone, well, several someones, about what she's experienced, the pain that she's gone through, and how it's affected her, and how she doesn't want to live this way anymore, but she doesn't really know how to, be different.
Hmm.
And it still seemed like she is, where I'm writing her now, she's still made progress. Like, she's still better than what she was, but she's still going to make those stupid mistakes that is going to potentially get her killed. And there was an instant where she almost did, where she was fighting against, it's technically a serial killer with a,
Hmm.
miraculous, always fun, right? Um,
Oh boy.
for fuck's sake. I'm ignoring you now, right now.
What?
You know which one I'm talking about, right? The rooster boy?
Oh, yeah, go ahead. Feel free to ignore me.
Yes, I will. But as she's fighting him, she uses her powers of defiance, which does allow her to defy the rules. He manages to slit her throat, but because of defiance, she lives. Because she is defying death. She is defying her fate.
Ooh.
And she doesn't realize she got hit there because she didn't feel the impact or the pain. Again, defiance is one hell of a power, but you can't escape everything. So essentially, she's left with the choice of let defiance run out and you'll die in 30 seconds, or let the serial killer go and save your life. In which case, she chooses life. So,
Damn.
yeah, it's one of those, like, kind of situations. Like, yeah, making stupid decisions, almost die. It's like she hasn't completely gotten better. There's still those moments, but she is also better at the same time. It's like you're not immediately gonna get better like right off the bat.
Yeah,
Why? Why the spinning chair?
because my brain is trying to process, and that's how it feels.
Processing power.
Slaps roof of character. This baby can fit a lot of trauma.
Well, that's kind of the thing, and I mean, maybe you can also help me out with this here, because um, the original plan was for the rooster was to have something of a damnation arc, but as I've been sitting here thinking, and this is where I have a lot of problems because of what he is versus like just how our society can view people like him and giving someone like him redemption when he probably doesn't deserve it. But my new thoughts for the Rooster is to give him a soft redemption, but also more along the lines of a flat character arc, which
Hmm.
we'll probably just go into that right now because I'm done with Damnation. But again, flat character arcs are basically people who go through a story or plot and don't change drastically from how they were at the start. They will still change, but they will still maintain the core beliefs and values and everything else that they had at the start of the film. It's also why I said a lot of Disney princesses, at least the earlier ones, felt static and flat because they had those kind of character arcs. They didn't change drastically. That's why it's not like Elsa and Anna or Moana, even for that matter. I don't know. I'd still say maybe Moana might be a little flat, but it's it's aside the point. Um, but why Skull? Why?
Because it's accurate.
For what?
The static characters.
They just stay the same.
He doesn't. Am I? Can I start with the first one?
Go ahead.
Zagreus. Throughout the course of the game, he's still trying to. Hold on. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. I had to think for a minute. No, he's he changes slightly, but like it's still the same character. He's still the same character throughout the course of the game.
And what kind of
He
character is
builds
that?
relationships with the Zagreus.
Yeah, because I've
He
not
builds
played Hades.
relationships with the other. Mm,
Hmm.
yeah, he builds relationships with the other characters and stuff throughout the course of the game, but his character doesn't really change.
Well, and what exactly is that character?
Oh boy.
What do you mean, oh boy?
Me trying to explain Zagreus is not easy.
Why is it not easy? It's because your mind's still trying to
I'm
process
trying to think.
everything, like the cat on the spinning chair.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, what kind of personality does he have? Can you start with that?
He's rebellious and stupidly persistent.
Okay, so like a teenager, gotcha.
You know, just an immortal teenager who dies hundreds of times over.
Oh, that's. Eee.
Yeah.
Okay. And he just doesn't change throughout the entire game?
Not a lot.
Like, he pretty much, like, his beliefs and everything pretty much is what stays consistent.
Yeah.
Like, there's no. I guess the best way to put it is like a paradigm shift, right?
Yeah.
You know what that means, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I'm just like, please don't tell me you're a raptor right now.
No.
Gotta get with one in at least.
I'm not a raptor.
Okay, good.
I'm just yeah. I'm
Here.
not a raptor.
Okay, good. That's something I'll take.
Um I'm not that dumb. I have like a rough idea as to what it means,
Okay.
but don't ask.
You cut out there. All I heard was don't ask.
Oof. Good.
Okay, fair enough. Well, is there anything else you want to say on Zagreus?
Not really.
Okay, fair enough. All right, so I will get into Felix first since it's the longest of this, and also just because I want second thoughts, Skull, just because of how things can easily change, but also the concern because of our society as a whole. But essentially, the way I've written Felix is a boy with extreme anger issues, like something like Luna from Hell of a Boss, where you just see the anger all the time. Like, you,
Oh
you've
boy.
you've seen enough Hell of a Boss, right? Like
Yeah.
you see Luna's anger issues, right?
Uh-huh.
Yes, this
Angry pupper.
is an angry pupper. But then, like, you haven't seen the most recent episode, have you? Season 2, episode 2.
I've seen part of it. I didn't finish it.
Okay,
I
well,
I saw the I saw the reference to Kim Kardashian and Kanye West and the jab that was made, and I lost my shit laughing and didn't bother to finish watching the rest.
oh my gosh, you're missing out on the
By that I
rest
mean
of
I got
it.
distracted.
Of course, you got distracted.
I got distracted by men.
I'm gonna leave that there. Anyway, um, so yes, I've written Felix to have more of that anger issues, but also like typical teen where it is thrown out of proportion because hormones like to go crazy. Hormones go burr, especially in certain teens. But then
Yeah.
it getting worse when he attracts the attention of the rooster, which in my writing is the personification of animosity, hatred, contempt, all that fun stuff. And the thing with the rooster is that it usually creates killers from its holders, using their anger and turning it on the world to where they will kill. And that is kind of where Felix is at right now, is that he is technically influenced by the rooster, as he's like kind of like an agitator kind of thing, and kind of pushing Felix along this route. I guess almost like a blood knight. But I was considering, and again, this is where it can get a little fine line, is having a flat character arc, not necessarily a damnation or a redemption, but having it where he is able to trauma bond. Oh my gosh, that sounds so bad. But to essentially trauma bond with Alex since they had very similar issues. Not the same, but similar things that resulted in completely different outcomes, obviously. And I'm thinking with him, because there's going to be a lot of people changing, obviously, and having more positive arcs. And I was considering with him where he at least opens up to Alex a little bit more and does find something of a friend in her, but he is not willing to let go of the anger in him just yet. That is such a big part of him, and he's just not willing to let it go yet. Maybe down the line, but not yet. What do you think?
Ooh. Ooh.
Like you kind of see where I kind of draw like it's like how fine of a line do we make this?
Yeah.
But that is what I'm considering. It's why I lean more towards a flat character arc because he's not going to change drastically. He will get to a point where he does acknowledge it's a problem, but he's not ready to let go of the problem either. And there are people, obviously, like that in life where they are not ready just to let go. There's just so much of a certain thing that it's hard to let go.
Yeah.
So that's what I was considering with Felix, but I'm just like, I'm not sure. Cause especially considering I want to try to avoid romanticization of him because of how our society likes to view serial killers. And
Yeah.
essentially, what Felix is in my AU is akin to a serial killer. I have been toying with the idea of a friends with benefits relationship he has with Alex because teenagers. But again,
Hmm.
it's those fine lines. I'm just like, how far do I push and how far do I not?
Yeah.
Like, what do you think?
Makes sense. Um.
Oh,
Uh. I don't think I have any room to comment on this, given some of my favorite fictional characters.
ah, jeez.
So, my opinion's probably gonna be like the exact opposite of what you want.
And what exactly is that?
Well, you said you don't want to romanticize serial killers, right?
So, what's your thoughts? Come on, share with the class.
Uh, dies.
No, for fuck's sake. Come on, Skull.
Dies.
Ah, I'm not gonna get anything out of you, am I?
Not for this, no.
Ah, so disappointing.
I'm sorry.
Yes, yes. Alright, so there is at least probably. I'm just gonna bring it up one, because I already mentioned the Disney princesses. At least some of the older ones are flat character arcs, because they really just. Not much there, I guess. Well, I will say, in terms of a few of them, Cinderella was like in the original Cinderella, she was already a strong, sarcastic woman who stayed true to her beliefs and did not give in to wickedness. She was still that way at the end. Yes, she was tested, but she never wavered in her beliefs, so she stayed the same. She was static and she had a flat character arc. Ariel is probably an interesting one. She's obviously more rebellious and headstrong and willing to do what she wants to, kind of like a teenager will. And even though she goes through so much, she's still technically the same person. Maybe a little toned down, possibly, but we don't really get to see too much of it afterwards. Like, obviously, she does have some remorse when confronted with, like, her father and Ursula when she fails, but, like, she still kind of feels the same to me. That could just be
Yeah.
me, but, like, it feels the same. Let me see. Belle definitely stays the same. The only difference is that she learns to love a beast. She doesn't change at all. So again, like a static character, flat character arc.
Oh boy.
Yeah, starting to draw a blank on some other Disney princesses right now. But that's just a few of them. The other one I wanted to bring up. So in contrast to Lightning, who did have more of a positive arc, if it was on the lighter side, Sarah the sister, I would say probably had more of a static arc, a flat arc. And I say this because 13.2 is the one game we have with a lot of time with Sarah, because in the first game she is frozen as crystal until the very end. We get like snippets of flashbacks, but she still is a very soft, gentle person, and she's still that way in the second game too. She's obviously changed just a little bit, like she's a little bit harder, but she's still very soft and sweet. Well, if anything, we probably just get more into her character that we weren't able to get from the first game. And then even then, like throughout the course of the game, she does learn things, but it ultimately doesn't change who she is. Like, she's still smart, kind, and like strong. Like, she's still all these things. Basically, Disney princess.
Oh boy.
And then she dies at the end of 13-2, so like she's nowhere really around for 13-3 except for a fake that Benevelza made to fool Lightning.
Oh, how dare.
So like it's actually really sweet at the end because even though it was a fake
Oh.
Sarah, she still came to save Lightning from herself. And I love the line
Aw.
at the end where Lightning is kind of like reminiscing on that, and she's just like, "You came to save me, even though you were never real." And she's like, "Yeah, that's right. I wasn't real. Um, how Sarah's soul wasn't inside of me, and how Benevelza didn't give her a heart, but she could imagine it, and she could imagine all the love and the feelings that Sarah would have had for Lightning, and those feelings became real." And then she ends it out saying, "I love you. I always have."
Oh.
Yes. It's very sweet. Like, if you never play the game Skull, I at least recommend that you watch the cinematics because they're actually really good.
We'll have to play the games eventually.
Yeah, eventually. But I do recommend, like, if you don't ever play the games, just watch the cinematics. It's basically watching a movie. Oh my gosh. Yeah, no, a lot of that gameplay is cinematics, just as a heads up, so now you know. I think except for Lightning Returns. I think that's the exception. But that also brings us into our last character archetype, which I personally don't see a lot of, or at least if I do, I don't really recognize it. And that is the transformational arcs, where a hero will begin the journey wanting something, go through their journey, and realize what they actually need by the end. So I asked this first Skull, is there any examples you have of this?
Um, kind of,
What do you
I
got?
think. I wasn't sure where to classify this one, but in season 6 of Lego Ninjago, one of the characters goes through a bit of a transformational arc. I think. I don't know, like description wise it seemed the most fitting,
Well,
but he
describe what
starts
he
out
goes through.
he starts out the season just trying to fix the relationship with uh one of the other characters. You know what, I'm just gonna go right and say it. So throughout the show there's a lot of back and forth, especially in the earlier seasons, trying to solidify the relationship between the characters Jay and Nia. And that was kind of ruined in season 3 and 4 because of a love triangle arc.
Oh yeah.
Fucking love triangles. Hate them. But season 6 comes around and we get to see Jay trying to fix his relationship with Nia. So they're dealing with a genie for, well, yeah, I'll just say a genie. It's easier for people to picture. Season 6, villain is a genie. Uh, anyways, some stuff happens that's not really relevant. Jay ends up meeting said genie, wishing for his life to be different, hoping maybe he'd have a chance to impress Nia. And it kind of just makes things worse, and it
Ew.
leads them down the events of the season. After he makes his wish, he kind of has this realization of shit, I fucked up. I think I just made everything worse. All this bad stuff's going to happen now. And it ends up becoming sort of just they're trying to stop. I'm just going to start calling him Nauticon. The character's name is Nauticon. They're trying to stop Nauticon. And it gets to the point where Jay essentially ends up. He made a mistake once with the wish, didn't want to do it again, and so he'd rather try find a solution that doesn't involve him using a wish. So much so to the point where he'd rather go through days of torture instead of just, trying to make a wish. He does end up eventually getting rescued, and he ends up stepping up and taking on a leadership role instead, completely ignoring the fact that he was trying to fix his relationship with Nia. It was a strong character arc. He started out, really selfish, whiny, just trying to do something for himself, and by the end of it, he ended up saving everybody. The only thing that I really hate about this is the fact that the way that they ended up solving it essentially led to the events of the season never happening. So it was a character arc that happened for nothing.
Oh, that stuff is fucking annoying.
Yeah, it was such a good character arc, and then it was just, nope, it's done. It never happened. Sorry.
That kind of reminds me of the whole, like, I know superhero stuff has a tendency to do this kind of stuff with the whole, like, what if scenario kind of thing, where it's like, it provides this really excellent opportunity for growth and whatnot. Like, I'm just gonna throw this out there because it's the one example that likes to piss me off every single time, and that's in Miraculous, where you have both ephemeral and chat blanc. So you have these opportunities for these characters to grow, but it's essentially taken out or replaced with trauma that didn't need to exist. Because that's one thing I will always hate about Chat Blanc, is that it's writing trauma for the sake of trauma, and that's not
Oh
good.
boy.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
things get really messy when you introduce time travel. I'm just saying that right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can say that happens for sure. I mean, especially when it's magic based time fuckery.
In that case, you really have no idea. Again, it's why I have so
Yeah.
much trouble with like time travel and like just time in general. The only exception to that is when you're not going into the past, but you're going into the future.
Mm.
It's why, as much as I hate the time travel trope and idea, I don't hate Final Fantasy 13 2. It is a game all about time travel, but you're not going in back in the past to stop the events of like Cocoon and whatnot. You're going forward in what is essentially Sarah's story, because Noel is just an extra. Like, I understand it's him going back into his past, but the game is focusing on Sarah and her relationship with Lightning and her trying to get back to Lightning. And the only way to do that is to move through time. So, like, in that case,
Oh
I
boy.
don't mind it so much because you're going forward in time and trying to fix what was done because of the goddess and basically warping the timeline. But, any other time, I'm just like, it just kind of gets really messy, especially when you have like these really good character arcs. And by the end of it, it never happened. And it's like, why bother then? And it's just, especially if it's a whole season. If it's a whole fucking season, that's just, uh, I can't even
Yeah.
imagine your pain for that. Like, standalone episodes are enough to piss me off, but like, oh, if it was an entire season, I would stop watching at that point. I'd be like, nope, I'm fucking done with this shit.
Yeah. I'm gonna be completely and utterly honest. I haven't finished watching season 6 of Ninjago, and when I go back to finish my analysis for the episode I'm doing, I'm gonna have to go back, finish watching it. I just the entire season and the way it was written and the pacing, just all of it really pissed me off.
It is a mood. And how many seasons are there in Ninjago?
Um, I think they're on season 16 now, and
How? That was season
there's more coming.
6?
Yeah, that was season 6.
Oh,
That was before the studio changed, and there's still more coming. The show's not over. I
is
thought
it?
the series was ending, but apparently it's just it's like a hiatus thing, but there's more coming apparently. And it's not a reboot or anything. They're continuing with the same storyline, same characters.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, no, I would have been like, nope, I'm done tapping out. That was it.
The show gets a lot better. It's just and rumor has it that they're bringing back Nauticon for this next season or one of the next seasons coming up. They've been hinting at it a lot in like promotional shit apparently and like a book. So I'm really hoping that they do it right this time.
Yeah, we'll see, won't we?
Well, it's new show writers too, so
Mm.
we'll see.
Yes, we will.
I'm excited though.
Well, I can offer two examples of transformational character arcs before we finish this up. And the first one is Hercules from Disney's version of Hercules.
Oh boy.
Have you ever
Do
watched
I
that
have
one?
to sit here and look? Yes, I've seen it. I'm just saying oh boy because of the fact that with the way that it was written and the way that everyone kind of just knows name-wise, I have to suffer through hearing Hercules instead of Heracles for
I
this
know.
entire
I know.
section. The agony.
I know. Sorry, mythology nerd, but it's gonna be Hercules.
Hmm.
I know. I'm sorry, but not really. My instinct is to say Hercules instead of Heracles. So, I do apologize. This is my one and only apology. But his arc is definitely a transformational one. It's probably the textbook example of it, where he leaves on a journey to find out who he is. And when he finds Zeus, he's told that if he wants to come back home and join them back in Olympus, then he's going to have to prove himself a true hero. And and he goes through and he does against all the training and fighting monsters, and he does become a hero. But when it's not enough, he begins to question like, what's it really going to take? Like, is this actually worth it if it's not getting me closer to my goal? Of course, that's when Meg comes in and all that kind of fuckery. Because of course it's Meg, and we all know that story, except for it had a much darker ending. But it's towards the end when he comes to realize that being a true hero is sacrificing literally his own life for the woman he loves, which, eh, she did the same thing. So I guess what goes around comes around. But essentially, in the end, what he thought he wanted, which was to return home, was to really just find his place. But he ended up finding it with Meg instead. So essentially, part of what he desired still came true at the end, but in a different way. And he still came out
Yeah.
a very different person for the experience as well. Like, you can still get what you want by the end, obviously, but like, it's just a matter of how you obtain it. Which is also why I'm going to bring this one up, because it is a transformational arc. Even though it's, I don't know, not. It's a mixed bag. It's a mixed bag. But it's Tiana from The Princess and the Frog. So, I'm not really going to address all the other, you know, issues that is around the film and whatnot, but the primary thing is Tiana wants to open her own restaurant. She's been working her entire life to save up the money to buy this old factory that her dad had his eyes on. And when she's finally making it, she's got the money, she's ready to start and everything, but she gets outbid, and at that point everything just comes crumbling down. And then we all know the whole thing with Naveen and whatnot. And in the end, when she is shown her having the restaurant of her dreams, Tiana's place, it rings hollow because she doesn't have Naveen there. So when it comes time for like the kiss between Lottie and Naveen, that's when Tiana's like, "Hey, my dream isn't going to be the same without you. Like, I love you. I need you in it." Again, it's that whole what you want versus what you need, which is what she did realize that she needed love because that's what her dad had. He had love. He had what he needed. And he never lost sight of that, and then in turn, she doesn't either, which I think is nice. And then again, yeah, she still ends up getting the restaurant at the end, but it's not exactly what she had initially wanted, but it came to be what she needed. So, yes. What are your thoughts, Skull? Skull, are you there?
Yeah.
Thoughts,
Uh,
comments, concerns?
I've given my concerns on the Heracles thing already.
Yeah, that's not the same. Like in terms of the character arc.
No, I really like the character arc. I like as a movie concept wise, I really do like Hercules. Though I do though historically and also based in mythology settings, I do take issue with how they wrote Hades. But that's for
Well,
another time.
I think a lot of people do, to be quite honest, but at the same time, like there's a lot of different depictions of Hades as well. And it just really kind of depends. But I do kind of enjoy the kind of like a
Yeah.
sleazy salesman
Oh,
kind of vibe he
it's
has going on.
entertaining.
Like that's
It's
ultimately,
entertaining.
yeah. Like yes, I get it. Like he wouldn't have done these things if we were being accurate to the mythology, but it does make for an entertaining plot.
It really does.
Especially when you get, what was it, James Woods? Is that the guy who voiced Hades in Hercules?
I think so.
Yeah, I think that's who they. Yeah, no, I remember. Yeah, it definitely was James Woods because he appears as himself on Family Guy, and I distinctly remember the voice.
Yeah.
Yep. And what are your thoughts on like Princess and the Frog with Tiana?
I was so confused the entire time you were talking because I've never seen the movie.
You really? You've never seen it?
No, I haven't.
Well, I guess a quick rundown, just like give you a summary. Um, Essentially, like Tiana wants to have her own like her own restaurant that her and her dad had dreamed of, and she basically works a lot of her life, not a lot of her life, but like a good portion of her life away to save up the money through tips and everything, working multiple jobs, and is a very hardworking woman. And it all comes to a head when, again, like she's about to have the place of her dreams, but she's told that she was outbid and, other comments. And it gets to a
Oh,
point where, she's at her lowest, she's wishing upon a star, which, she saw as very, like, childish at that point. Like, she even tells Lottie, like, you can't just wish on a star and expect things to come true. And of course, the moment she wishes on a star, that's when Naveen shows up and freaks her out by talking. He's like, hey, you should kiss me, princess, and then everything will be right. But she's not a princess, so she gets turned into a frog. Which is where one big
okay.
controversy comes in because of how Disney is. And
Yeah.
they basically go through a lot of the movie as frogs, trying to find.
Hee hee.
Shut up. Trying to find Mama Odie, who is this voodoo lady, which was a whole other thing as well as their depiction of voodoo and all that stuff, which I'm not going to comment on because I know jack shit about. And her basically being the one, like, essentially setting up the transformational arc for Tiana, where it's like, well, I guess Naveen too, where you need to find out what you need, not what you want. Which Naveen goes through his own, where he wants to be rich, but he's just willing to do it halfway and just marry someone for money when he needs to realize that he's actually in love and that he can get what he wants through love, which he does. So, like, yeah. And then, of course, the Shadow Man captures Naveen again. There's a whole Mardi Gras parade and whatnot. And Tiana beats the Shadow Man. They miss the midnight deadline for the kiss. They get married. She becomes a princess at that point. Then her kiss turns them back into humans. And yeah, then the epilogue is basically her getting the restaurant, them fixing it up, and them running it.
Aww.
Like, it's fine for what it is, but I don't know. It's not one of my favorites.
Hmm.
That's just
The
me, though.
the only reason why I could ever see myself watching the movie at all was
Frogs.
because you said frogs.
Yep, nope. I saw that one coming. When I heard, ooh, I'm just like, yep, that's it. That's all it takes. Frogs. And they do spend a good portion of that movie as frogs. So, yeah. Alright, Skull, I will ask you this. Do you have any other comments, questions, concerns, ending thoughts?
E.
Still spinning, are we?
No, I'm distracted by frog with a top hat now.
Oh my gosh! Why?
We started talking about frogs. I'm sorry.
Oh my gosh, you get distracted far too easily, my friend. Honestly.
I'm very sleepy right now. I had a bad sleep last night.
I
Couldn't fall
believe
back
it.
asleep.
Oh boy, excuse me. Alright, well, do you have any more thoughts on anything other than your
No,
exhaustion and frogs?
no.
Alright, so we will end it there. It's been fun. This has been Skull and Lotus. And you guys all have a good morning, night, afternoon, evening, whatever the case may be, and we'll see you guys next time.